Indeed, given my experience working for Mr. Trump, I fear that if he loses the election in 2020, that there will never be a peaceful transition of power.
The president's former attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, back in February, this was before the House Oversight Committee, and now, 3 months later, the House Speaker is voicing those same concerns. In a new interview with the New York Times, Speaker Pelosi warned Democrats that the president, quote, would not give up power voluntarily if he lost re-election by a slim margin next year. Joining me now, Democratic Congressman from Tennessee, Steve Cohen. He is a member of the House Judiciary Committee and a frequent guest here. It's awfully good to see you, my friend. Thank you for joining me. Do you share the same concerns as the House Speaker? Are you worried this could all turn into a constitutional crisis?
There's no question that it will. This president loves power, and he will do anything to maintain it and to keep it. And he has been contemptuous of Congress, not turning over documents, asking people not to testify. It'd be like a prosecutor in court where they have a duty to turn over exculpatory evidence to the other side, said, there's no case here, I'm not going to do it, and refused to turn it over. Well, those are the rules, and he has to do it. He'll do anything, and as Michael Cohen said, he doesn't think Trump will leave office in a peaceful way. We've got a constitutional crisis we've got in the courts with seeing evidence and having witnesses, and we've got a crisis concerning the election with the Russians meddling. They will continue to meddle, and Trump doesn't care because he sees it to his advantage. And then if he loses, I don't think the man will leave office in a respectable fashion.
But sir, you talk about rules. Donald Trump does not always play by rules, or he interprets the rules to his liking and to his benefit. So what will the Democrats be able to do to protect the Constitution of the United States? Do you think in American institutions, are they strong enough to hold against this?
I think they are. They must be. We have gone to court on the Emoluments Clause, and 2 courts are looking into his violations of the Emoluments Clause, which is a constitutional prohibition on him taking money from foreign powers, which would eventually influence his decisions. We're going to have investigations and oversight, which is one of Congress's duties, into his actions with obstruction of justice, into his actions with offering pardons, which is part of obstruction of justice, and other unconstitutional acts that he's engaged in. And we will go to court to see documents, to see evidence, to see the unredacted Mueller report. In the past, the Attorney General has gone with the majority party to see documents, ask the court to do it. I think Judge Howell will do it whether Barr goes with us or not, but it'd be best for him to go with us. But Barr has shown himself to be Trump's lawyer, like John Mitchell was Nixon's lawyer. They are acting in illegal manners. He lied to Congress, and he is contemptuous of Congress.
Why do you think your party doesn't fully support the idea of impeachment? You have especially these concerns with Michael Cohen and Speaker Pelosi. Shouldn't the process of impeachment and the line that it draws for this president outweigh the political risk? Or is it political in your calculation that you look and say, we could maybe get it in the House, but we are not going to get it done in the Senate?
That's what we're looking at, Alex. You know, my buddy was Warren Zevon, and he wrote about the excitable boy, and sometimes he called me the excitable senator when I was a state senator. Well, I'm also sometimes the excitable congressman. And I got upset with Charlottesville. There weren't fine people on both sides, and that's my articles of impeachment that were introduced in November of 17. His way he talked with Putin yesterday, said he smiled at him, and he was so happy about that. It almost got me ready to want to put my articles in again. I've had them annotated. They're ready to go. But I know Nancy Pelosi is leading us on the better course, and I have to keep that sublimated, the passions of the moment, to the most important overall outcome, which is the removal of Donald Trump by the people in November of 2020. The Republicans obviously want us to go forward with impeachment because their polling will show that it helps them politically. And if that's what it does, we can't have that happen. We can't do the right thing and lose on the big issue, and the big issue is November of 2020 and removing this president who does not act in a presidential fashion, in a constitutional fashion from office, and get us back into the rule of law and to the American democracy, republic that Benjamin Franklin gave us. You know, they said, what do we have, Mr. Franklin? We've given you a republic if you can keep it. we're in that situation now.
Well, it looks to me like you've given this a lot of thought, because you've certainly broadened your perspective. I mean, you were clamoring for impeachment all the way, among the first to do so some time ago. So you're listening to Nancy Pelosi.
I am, but I see the big picture, and Nancy's taken us to the big picture. I was with Bishop Michael Curry today here in Memphis, the Episcopal bishop.
Yeah, I know.
And he talked about when the power of love overcomes the love of power, we will know peace. And I've had to think about Donald Trump. He knows the power of love, but he has no conception of the, he knows the love of power, but he has no conception of the power of love.
Let me get hypothetical with you here for a moment regarding Don McGahn, should he testify before your committee. And if he does so and admits that what's in the report is accurate, what is next? Because if the party is shying away from impeachment, and you can't, under Justice Department guidelines, currently indict a sitting president, why is his testimony so important?
His testimony is important to the American people, what happened, and that a lot of people didn't read the Mueller report, and then they accepted what Barr and Trump put out as a stage, that there's no collusion, which is not the issue, was conspiracy, and no obstruction. And they've accepted that, and his base has accepted it. We need to get the whole public to hear straight from the testimony of the individuals that were before the Mueller report and dealt with Trump, to show how he obstructed justice and told him to fire Mueller, which he did. He said to get rid of him. And Barr's concept that he can do whatever he wants, and if the president deems that it's not unconstitutional or not wrong, it's just hooey. Nobody there are not many, very few people in the legal community accept that kind of a standard, and if you did, you wouldn't have a republic with three co-equal branches of government, which is what we're blessed with by the Founding Fathers. So we want McGahn to testify so the American public can hear the straight testimony. We want Mueller to testify, and hopefully he'll come on the 15th, but nothing's confirmed. And I think we should ask Jeff Sessions to come in, too. He could lay some things out as well. We need the American public to understand what's happened. The Russians have attacked our system of government. They've influenced our elections. They did it through social media. You know, I heard Senator Kennedy on, and he said, oh, the Russians have done this for 60 years. They just did a little more. Hooey. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have Instagram. We didn't have Twitter 60 years ago. This has been a phenomenon for the last 5 to 10 years where it's gotten so big, and the Russians took advantage of it, and they put out psychological information to try to sway the voters, and they were successful.
Last question for you. Friday, you said that you would support imprisoning the Attorney General if he refused to testify. Do you see any political risks that would come from that? Because there are those that would argue that is overreach.
Well, there are, but there's some things you just have. He's been contemptuous of Congress, and we have to respect the institution in which we serve, and for future generations. You can't have future Congresses. You can't have an Attorney General who tries to dictate the terms, which is not his job, who refuses to appear, and who holds documents up. There's no question what he did with his stunt of giving a 3.5-page summary and then waiting 3 or 4 weeks to release the report, but beforehand having a press conference to try to really set the standard. It was brainwashing is what he was doing. They were trying to create and establish a mindset of what the report said, which is not what it said. He did not say anything. That's why Mueller was upset. So, no, if we do a contempt of Congress that doesn't involve physically bringing him in by the sergeant at arms, his Justice Department will refuse to comply with it. It'll end up in court. Nothing will come of it. We need to do some concrete things to show that we are following our oaths, our constitutional duties, and our responsibilities for this and future Congresses, and not let this administration run over us. As far as the president, if we can't impeach him, because I don't think the Senate would impeach him if he shot the person on Fifth Avenue, we could censure him. And a censure in the House, which we can do without the Senate, would at least have us go on record as admonishing him for illegal conduct. The Mueller report shows that there was obstruction of justice. There wasn't guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, but you don't need but a preponderance of the evidence for impeachment and or for censure. We need to bring out those facts, and eventually we need to censure this president, and that's, I think, unfortunately, the best we can do with a Senate that is totally in his control and lacks the spine to uphold the Constitution.
All right. I do have to get your response to one more thing, because, as you know, you've been criticized a lot for the props that you brought to the hearing on Thursday. You brought a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken and then that small chicken statue there. I want to give you an opportunity to respond to some of the criticism you've received. Here's a little compilation of it. Take a listen, everyone.
Well, this Thursday in Congress was Take Your Chicken to Work Day. And just think about the poor intern who had to go KFC at dawn.
They've disgraced themselves completely. The chicken stunt, the KFC.
Oh, it's embarrassing.
Steve Cohen is lame humor personified. If he knew his chicken, he'd bring Popeyes, not KFC.
It's always a shame for democracy when you bring the Colonel into it.
Yeah.
He's racially insensitive, is what I think. And just can you imagine if that was a Republican doing that to a Democrat?
I don't know. You made SNL. I mean, that's pretty huge. But what do you want to say to those folks?
It was a humor. The New York Times referred to it as levity. That's what I intended. I intended to create the hashtag chicken bar and bring home the fact that he was chicken, to stand up to 30 minutes of questioning by our two counsels, Norm Eisen and Barry Burke, who Attorney General with the acumen of an attorney general should not be afraid for that hearing, and there's plenty of precedent for it. One of my staffers went out the night before and got some KFC. Another staffer brought in the porcelain ceramic chicken. Sarah Silverman's become my advisor through the Twitter. She said that was a hat on a hat. One would have been fine. The two was too much. And I guess I hammed it up a bit, which is a bad thing for a Jewish guy to do, by eating some of the chicken. It was cold and it wasn't wonderful. And it's not my favorite brand.
Barbecue, extra crispy or original? That's I need to know that.
I would have gone with the four-way grill from Memphis or Gus's from Memphis, but FedEx couldn't get it in on the short notice we gave them. The fact is, yeah, maybe I would, but a little humor is okay, and I've got some Warren Zevon and some Hunter Thompson in me, and it's going to come out. It didn't hurt, and people know more about Chicken Bar than they ever did before.
Point well taken, Steve Cohen. Always good to see you. Thank you so much.